When I first held up a piece of glass, it was magic to me. And I held it up and I then like moved it around and it changed. And it ignited in me that I could make not just one piece of art, but hundreds of pieces of art as the light would alter and change, the art piece would too. And I became alive with the great medium of glass.
Stained glass essentially means nothing without some kind of light reflecting off of it or coming through it. And so when you view a stained glass window, you can't help but be in awe of the deep, almost spiritual connection that you have with light, because light is the source of life. Without light, life could not exist.
Tom he's definitely visionary. He thinks big. He can be a bit of a crazy artist too, so his mind is going a lot of different places at once.
When people meet Tom, they realize he's an artist, but he's got some quirkiness to him, but that's what allows him to do what he does.
I've always called him like a little kid in a big boy body. He's just always had this little boy enthusiasm about himself, this kind of almost childlike excitement for anything that it is that he wants to do. And that which he wants to do, and he will get it done.
I feel like there's a lot that goes on in his head. Creative individuals usually have a lot going on, and sometimes they say it through speech, but since my dad can't, he usually puts all of that into his art. And so you'll see that in the colors, in the facial expressions, and the patterns that he chooses. It all has a place in his head, and because he can't get words out, he puts that through his art.
Smiley Tommy. Well, Tommy, what do you have to say for posterity?
Nothing.
Tommy?
Nothing.
From what I am aware of, he started stuttering around the age of maybe 6, 5 to 7, somewhere around there is kind of when he remembers really struggling to speak more than he ever had before. There's a little school game called Red Rover, and so the whole team says Red Rover, send, and Tommy couldn't get the word out, and he struggled and struggled, and the kids started to laugh, and it was horribly painful for him, and he ran away from the game and went into the school and cried when his 2nd grade teacher came in to talk to him, and she said, you know, there are other ways for people to be able to express themselves, so why don't you draw me a picture of what you really want to say?
Ever since I was small, I have had a hard time speaking. I have been slow of speech, and that has pushed me for other ways that I can speak to people.
There were other ways to express himself, and he started clinging to art that way and has never let it go. It took him through the difficulties and challenges of junior high in particular, right? And then in high school, he kept doing it, and he was ultimately the Art Sterling Scholar at Orem High School. He has gotten to a point where he can verbally say more than he did in the past, but he'll always use art, I think, as his first way to express himself.
So there's never been a part of my life that has been separated from the studio. I remember as a child being stuck here, and we would call it studio time. We would say we're just going to spend 5 minutes at the studio, but it was never 5 minutes. It was always longer because there were so many things to be done. So Tom and I are both very creative. I think we often approach our creativity differently. I'm a little bit more serious than Tom. We can often butt heads, and I'm one of the few people at the studio who can really just like speak my mind, since I do have the privilege of being Tom's son. I can say exactly what it is that I'm thinking and feeling, and
often he comes to us with a spark, and it's kind of our job to fan the flame and create something that we can all, you know, a fire that's bigger than any one individual.
If a person looks at my art and says, that's the best stained glass window I have ever seen, and then they just, you know, like walk away and not internalize it in, you know, like their heart, then I have not done my job right.
So I remember one day, it had been a long day with the kids, and I had our youngest, who was 2, on my hip, and Tom came home from the studio and he said, I got this idea today, and he gets so excited, and I said, okay, well, what was that? And he said, I want to do the history of the world in stained glass. And I remember the first thing out of my mouth was, well, that's a big idea. And so he said, well, maybe not the history of everything, just the history of knowledge.
So the Roots of Knowledge has definitely been a showpiece for us, something that has really displayed our skill. It's definitely also served as a source of stress, especially during its like creation, because as you can imagine, on a project so large, being 200 feet long, 10 feet tall, an attempt to depict the history of knowledge in stained glass, there is lots and lots that is involved with it. On our side, besides just creating it, we'd have to figure out, well, how is that going to happen? How is that going to happen resource-wise? Where's the money going to come from? Where's it actually going to go? Who's going to, want to have this, and all of those things.
And then we had to be creative in the ways that we depicted certain things so we could fit it all in there. So we couldn't just have a bunch of faces of famous people from history.
So by far, the longest part of the process is the concept and design. It's a several years long design process that it goes through different iterations, it goes through different conversations, it goes through different artists' hands,
Once the window is all designed, then you basically trace all the main shapes so that you can cut those shapes out of glass.
There's a lot of thinking that goes into creating those lead lines and making sure that the structure is sound.
You print that out so you know what the window is going to look like. You know what all the shapes are going to look like so you can cut the pieces out.
The painting is actually, it's like a glass silica dust with pigment, and so that dust we mix with oil or water to apply it to the glass with, a brush. And so that piece of glass with the paint on it is then fired in a kiln, much like ceramic firing. So the paint that you paint on changes significantly after it's fired.
From that point, you have people that cut out glass. We have people that put it together, and that involves lead cane, which is just it's like an I-beam.
It's like every little piece of glass in this puzzle has its own picture frame made of lead. And then you solder all the joints.
And then it's sort of insulated with, tempered glass on both sides to help with structure and protection, and then that's kind of, where it finishes up.
I don't think any really remarkable thing happens without significant opposition. Nothing comes for free, right?
Within a year to the deadline, it was starting to get pretty crazy. I mean, we had 30, 40 people working back here, and we were only halfway through.
We basically didn't have parents at all. Obviously, they were still in our lives, but they weren't mentally there all the way. And so that was definitely very, very hard on us as kids for 12 years. I mean, that's my whole childhood growing up, 12 years.
Every drop of savings, everything that we had to our name had gone into it at this point. And it was getting really hard on Tom. And the pressure that was putting on the studio and the pressure it was putting on our family and on me. I remember in particular, there was one day where I thought, this is actually gonna destroy us. It's gonna take out the business. It may even destroy my whole family. And I was entirely overwhelmed with panic. Oh, sorry. And concerns of my own. And so I'm a person of great faith, and people express that differently, but for me, prayer is a big one. And so I went to my knees in prayer to speak to who I see as my Heavenly Father. And I expressed all of my concerns, and I asked all the questions. How are we going to do this? And the answer that came back was so direct and so clear. He said, Gail, these are my windows. You're creating them for me so that every one of my children who sees them will know that I know who they are, they matter to me, and I love them. I just felt that significant purpose for these windows, and I remembered saying in my heart, that is enough. I can work with that.
We had a year to finish it, and we were in column I. So we had to finish the rest all the way to column Z in a year.
I still have a sleeping bag in the back of my truck that I would pull out, and I would sleep on the floor in Tom's office or on the couch, and I would set my alarm for the kiln, and I'd wake up every 4 hours or whatever. I would just constantly be putting pieces in the kiln to be fired, and I just wouldn't go home. That's how insane we were.
One of the quotes that I put in early on was from the Homer Odyssey, and it says, "And what he greatly thought he nobly dared." And I emblazoned that into the glass, and I thought, this will keep me going. This will keep me to the end.
I think oftentimes you have to take a step into the dark before the light comes back. And so for as brilliant and magnificent as that project is, you gotta know that there was some agony along with that ecstasy. I need a tissue now, sorry.
It was down to the last day. Like, we were installing windows the night before the opening, you know. That's how insane it was. And I just remember all of us here probably at 2 in the morning and just excited that we got it done, you know.
So what an incredible opportunity it was to be able to take 6 of these 80 panels of Roots of Knowledge over to New York to show them and display them, and then take a different 6 over to Oxford and London. It was really humbling to think that we'd be able to take our artwork and display it there, and we had no idea how we would be received, right? And we set our little stuff up, and it's only 6 of 80 panels, so we're hoping, well, they'd be able to see the big idea. We had the designs of the rest of the concepts, but only these 6 for them to look at. They all ended with the same energy, and that was an energy of connection and an energy of excitement and enthusiasm, because they caught the vision of what we were trying to do and they were touched. So you can imagine, you know, at first when Tom said, I gotta go out on a walk, and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
I could not sleep, and I went and started to walk the streets of London in the mist. And as I walked, I walked halfway across the London Bridge. And I stopped and I leaned over and looked over at the Thames, the river, and it was all sparkling, and it was all of the lights up above. And I looked from there and up, and I thought, all of those like people in all those places have their own experience, their own lives. I thought to myself, this is too big of an idea. This is way big. And I was exhausted from 12 years of this masterpiece. But then that idea went from here, and it came down and it came down and planted into my heart and soul. And I realized, if I don't do it, and if my team and the world doesn't do it, who will?
The first thought that came into my mind was, oh. And I didn't know if that was a good oh or a bad oh, because I knew what Roots of Knowledge had taken. I knew what it felt like to hear that idea, to wonder if it would ever come to fruition, to wonder if it was going to destroy us, to see it be magnificent and touch so many lives. And I thought, this other idea? It's ginormous, it's huge, it's Herculean. Ah.
I shook my head a bit at that, and I just said, that's just too much for us to even think about right now.
It's unlike anything like I've seen before, and so as an artist and a creative person, it's like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of that project. So it's an immediate excitement pull to it.
He had just finished the Roots of Knowledge windows, which gave him all the credibility in the world to move on to this next project, even though it's 5.5 times the size. The building is stained glass, made of stained glass. It's from what I can tell, the single largest art exhibit in the world, because the building is the art exhibit.
That experiential kind of form of artwork that takes Roots of Knowledge, to the next level, where Roots of Knowledge was very intellectual, and to be able to kind of make more of a cathedral-like experience with artwork is something that I'm very, excited about.
We started putting together kind of this thesis, basically, is what the 7 pillars of humanity is. So each one of these 7 pillars is just a small summary, a thesis, like I said. And that's what we've been using as a promotional art piece to show people, hey, this is basically what we want to do, but a way bigger version.
It is at times to be hard inside of my mind, I admit that. And when these ideas are extremely large, I don't do small things. I don't know if you've noticed.
And people tell us we're crazy, or that can't be done, or you should really scale that back. We're like, I don't know, we might make it bigger. Right? That kind of happened with Roots of Humanity. Is we're like, okay, we can't go like bigger than this, and I think right now it's like twice that size conceptually. So
he doesn't let outside voices affect him as a person and affect his dreams, and I think that's huge, because it's kind of made him who he is. I mean, if he let his failures and other people tell him what to do, then he wouldn't be the man he is today.
Something that Tom had to recognize at one point was that his first job in inspiring people in the world was to inspire his family. And the balance of that can be hard, because when you have people who, they want the art, they want to be able to have you come to this particular event and share the art or share your story, or what, because it does motivate and uplift people. But what happens if your child had an event that night, or what happens if there was something that they needed and they wanted? And that has been very, very challenging.
I have been told more times in my life than anything else, wow, you are so lucky to have both of like your parents as your parents. And in many ways that is true, but it has never been without struggles and challenges. I both wish and don't wish that people could see all of the behind the scenes, that they could be involved in every aspect so that they could have true understanding. But ultimately, I think it is all for the best. That all of these struggles and challenges have also been paired with beautiful experiences and wonderful opportunities that I otherwise would not be able to have.
We want to do these things and we want to live this mission, but I hope my kids know, at least from me, I mean, I can't always speak for my husband, but that there is no other important place on the planet for me to be than with them when they need it. And so I've been grateful that they have been willing to take a step back sometimes and say, you know what, this I can handle so that you can go do this other bigger mission. So that's something we've worked on balancing, and Tom in particular has tried hard and I think is doing even better now than ever before, because that's been a struggle for him sometimes. If I had a regret, it would be for Tom. He would push himself too hard and too long at times. And there's a saying that an artist is never finished, we just run out of time. And that is pretty true, because most artists will keep tweaking, keep changing, until the time is gone.
I've always been a little bit more realistic than Tom, which I think has also been a source of conflict, because he's always wanted me to be a bit more of a dreamer. And I do dream, but I always want to dream dreams that can come true. And I always work to make sure that they can come true.
If you really look at a stained glass window, you're going to realize it's made up of all of these different little pieces of glass. Every single one of them is unique in its shape and its color and where it is found within the design. Our hope then, as we create things like the Roots of Knowledge and now the Roots of Humanity, is to help people see their piece in this world, that they are this unique and beautiful, full of potential individual. Some people already understand that, but a lot of people don't.
Some of us, you know, are dark, and we kind of offset those really bright pieces and balance each other and work together. And that's what makes the really cool pieces stand out more, is the background pieces. I think about that a lot, because, you know, a lot of people feel like they're worthless or they don't matter, but they really do a lot more than they think. I know where a lot of it is, and I've gone through it so many times, and there's some pieces of glass we've had for like decades, and they've just never been used because we haven't had the right project for it. And it's always fun when I like pull out a piece of glass and I'm like, guess what? It's your day, you know? It's like, you're perfect. You're perfect for this project.
Something that I think is special about our art, and that's special about most art, is that it's not just created to be beautiful. Beauty holds like value, but there is something more impactful about art that holds a message and that inspires people to be their best selves. And that's the focus of the Pillars, Windows, and the Roots of Humanity structure, is to inspire people to not just like treat others better, but to be their best selves.
Every person has a story. We just don't know what that story is. But the legacy of humanity is written in art.
And these ideas become like so strong in me, like roots of humanity, that I know it needs to exist more than I need air to breathe.
You know, the mission which I accepted as well by stepping in and becoming a wife and life and business partner, we want to uplift people, we want to edify them. For me, my most ultimate joy in life is to help others understand their full potential and be able to see themselves in the beauty that I see them with and that other people see them with. And Tom wants to do that same thing. He wants to inspire people to know that they can get through hard things and they can do more and be more.
Roots of humanity for me is what I was born on this earth to do. Not just for the sake of the art or the imagery or how beautiful it is, because it will be magnificent. We have the artists and scholars and others that we don't even know or haven't even met that will do incredible things of showing humanity that we all beat the same